Okay, this is Algebra 1, test for week number 14. Picking up, this is part number 2. We're picking up with number 13. It says solve the system using elimination. Remember, we learned 3 different methods on how to solve systems. This one is set up nice and neat for you for elimination. Remember, all you need to do is put the 2 equations together. But first, you need to stack them. You need to make sure your x's are stacked on top of each other, your y's are stacked on top of each other, and so your constants. And on also, you need to make sure you have opposite coefficients. In this case, we have opposites because we got 1 and -1. So they're nice and neat to put together. When you combine, remember the elimination method is also called the combination method. When you combine 2x and 4x, you get 6x. When you combine 1y and -1y, you eliminate the y's. That's the goal. And when you combine -1 and 13, you get 12. So you're left with something that says 6x is equal to 12. So get x by itself by dividing by 6 to cancel out the multiplication. When you do it to the left, do it to the right, and x's value is equal to 2. So that's one of your values. Remember, a system, the solution to a system is the point where the 2 lines when you graph them where they cross. This is only one value, x is 2. In order to find the other one, substitute it back in to one of the equations. If they look the same, just pick the top equation. 2 times x, and our new value for x is 2, plus y is equal to -1. 2 times 2 we know is 4, plus y is -1. And in order to get y by itself, undo the fact that this is +4 or +4 by subtracting 4 on both sides. -1 minus 4 is -5. So y's value is -5. Remember, solutions to systems are written as ordered pairs. X, comma, y, or 2, -5. There's your solution. That's the one point that if you graph both equations, that's the point they would cross, or that's the one point they have in common. Number 14 tells you to solve this one using substitution. Okay, this one's set up easier for substitution since both of your y value variables are isolated. They're all by themselves. On top of that, the second equation, y equals 4x, only has one term in it. So that makes it even shorter and even easier to use substitution. So in place of y in the first equation, we can put in 4x is equal to, the rest of it, 2x plus 10. So now you just have an equation with variables on both sides. 2 is smaller than 4, so bring the 2x over to the 4x side. It's positive 2x, so in order to undo it, subtract 2x. When you do something to the right side of an equation, you know you have to do the exact same thing to the left side. 4x minus 2x is 2x. It's equal to 10. Then get x by itself by getting rid of 2 times that by dividing by 2. If you do it to the left again, do it to the right to balance it. And x's value is going to be equal to 5. There's one of your values, 5. Take that one and plug it into one of your other equations. The second equation is much simpler than the first one because there's only one term. So y's value equals 4 times x, or your new value for x we just found is 5. Y's value is 4 times 5, which is 20. Again, an ordered pair is a solution to a system. X, comma, y is 5, 20. That's your solution. Number 15 tells you to find the slope through these pairs. Remember, your slope formula is the change of y sub 2 minus y sub 1 is the difference of them or the change of them over your change of x sub 2 minus x sub 1, the difference of those. Remember, these two are both y, 6 and 0. Most of us look at the second one and we say, okay, 0 minus 6. That's fine. Over, we look at the x values of the 2 first ones, and we do the same thing. 8 minus 5. 8 minus 5, make sure you go in the same way both times. So when we simplify this, 0 minus 6 is negative 6, and 8 minus 5 is 3. This says negative 6 divided by 3, or your slope is going to be negative 2. Remember, it's a negative divided by positive is a negative. 6 divided by 3 is 2. (16) tells you to write an equation for this line that is parallel to the given line that passes through the given point. So if you look just at the equation given, y equals 3/4 x minus 9, that is in y equals mx plus b form. The only thing you're interested in from that equation, since it tells you the other equation is parallel, is the slope. Parallel lines, we know, have the exact same slope. So we know the slope is the m value. So the only thing of interest right there for us is 3/4. So our m value in that equation is 3/4, or our m value of our new equation is going to be 3/4. The other part tells you it has to pass through the point 8, negative 9. Now we are given a slope here and a point. Now this right here was slope-intercept form. That's not the easiest method to use since we're given a point and a slope. Your point slope form is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Remember, for this, there's only 3 things you need to plug in. You know you're going to leave y right where it is. You know you're going to leave the equals in the m with the parentheses and the x right where it is. We're going to plug in a value for y sub 1. I'm sorry, we'll even plug in a value for that m. I didn't mean to do that. We'll plug in a value for that m and that x sub 1. Those are the 3 things we need to include. The m value is just like it says. 3/4 goes in place of m. The x and y sub 1s are the opposite of whatever this x and y sub 1 says, only because, remember, it's minus what it says right here. So in place of y sub 1, we have negative 9 in our question. We're going to put in positive 9. In place of x sub 1, we have positive 8. We're going to put in negative 8. So this is your equation. This follows your directions in order to write an equation parallel to the given one that passes through that point 8, negative 9. Y plus 9 equals 3/4 times x minus 8. Then we get a lot quicker type problems right here. Negative 6.6 to the 0 power. Remember, anything raised to the 0 power is 1. 2 to the negative 4th power. Anything raised to a negative exponent rides the elevator. This is not a fraction right now, but we can create a fraction by putting it over 1. Remember, if it rides the elevator, if it's at the top, it goes down. If it's at the bottom, it goes up. So you're left with 1 at the top over 2, and since it rode the elevator, it becomes 2 to the positive 4th. We know 2 times itself 4 times. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. We're left with 1 over 16. For number 19, 3k to the 3rd, m to the negative 3rd. There's nothing we can do with 3, and there's nothing we can do with k to the 3rd. But you can't leave that m to the negative 3rd. Again, same elevator rule. This is being raised to a negative exponent. So this rides the elevator down. 3k to the 3rd stays on top right where it is. It doesn't move. M goes down, and it goes from being negative 3rd. When it comes down, it becomes to the positive 3rd. Same thing for number 20, but it's already in fraction form. The only thing that's being raised to a negative exponent is c. It rides the elevator up. So 11 stays on top, c comes up and becomes to the positive 6th, and d stays right where it is on the bottom because it's raised to a positive exponent. 6 times 3 to the negative third. Again, it's raised to a negative exponent. You can't multiply them to do it. It needs to ride the elevator right now. It becomes 6 times 1 over 3, that's the elevator, to the positive third. So 3 to the third, we know is 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. If we go straight across, 6 times 1 is going to be 6, and 1 times 27 will be 27. We can reduce this fraction. The number 3 goes into both numbers. It goes into 6 twice, and 3 times 9 is 27. 2 over 9. 5 to the negative third times 9 to the 0. Again, anything raised to a negative exponent has to ride the elevator. 1 over 5 becomes to the positive third. Anything to the 0 power we know is 1. So we have 1 over 5 to the third. 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. So we have 1 over 125 times 1, which would simply be 1 over 125. '23, all of your bases are the same. 2, 2, and 2. Remember, when you multiply in the same bases, you add exponents. It becomes 2 to the negative 1 plus a negative 6, which means minus 6, plus a positive 10. So negative 1 minus 6 is negative 7, and negative 7 plus 10 is positive 3. So you have 2 to the positive third. 2 times itself 3 times. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, is your simplified version. Both of these, just like number 23, are the same base. They both say 3.43. So it winds up being 3.43 to the negative 9 plus 9. You add the exponents, and if you need to look at it this way, it might help. But 3.43 negative 9 plus 9 is to the 0, and we know anything to the 0 power is 1. This next one, if you need to look at the coefficient 1, you can. 1 times 2 is the number 2, and then you have the same bases, h and h. So just like the problems before, 23 and 24, you add the exponents. H to the 5 plus 4 is 2h to the 9th. 26 is raising a power to a power. You don't add the exponents right here. Now you multiply them. K to the 5 times 4 is k to the 20th. P to the negative 2 to the 6, again, you multiply them. P to the negative 2 times 6 is P to the negative 12th. We can't leave it with a negative exponent, though. Just like previous problems, it has to ride the elevator. When it goes down, it becomes 1 over P. Now it's to the positive 12th. 7Q to the 6 to the third, everything gets raised to the third. 7 gets raised to the third, and Q to the 6 gets raised to the third. So it becomes Q to the 6 times 3. We know Q to the 6 times 3 is Q to the 18th. And then 7 to the third, 7 times 7 we know is 49. And 49 times 7 is 343. So 343 Q to the 18th. And then 29, you have to square everything in the first parentheses. Negative 2 gets squared, and it acts like this. Negative 2 squared. C squared gets squared, so C to the 2 times 2, and D to the third gets squared, D to the 3 times 2. You do the same thing with the second parentheses. It's being raised to the 8th power. So C to the 4th gets raised to the 8th, which means times 8, and D squared is D to the 2 times 8. So when we simplify this, it looks real long right now, But when we simplify it, negative 2 squared is going to be a positive 4. C to the 2 times 2 is C to the 4th. D to the 3 times 2 is D to the 6th. C to the 4 times 8 is C to the 32nd. D to the 2 times 8 is D to the 16th. Then you add your like bases. C's are the same bases, so you have C to the 4 plus 32, which is C to the 36. And your D's are the same bases. D to the 6 plus 16 is D to the 24th. And all you have to do is bring down your 4. So you're left with 4 C to the 36, D to the 24th. Number 30 says simplify the product using FOIL. Remember, FOIL just tells you the order to multiply. You're multiplying each term by each term. So first, F is for first. Your first two terms, 2x times 5x. 2 times 5 is 10. X times x, you add the exponents 1 plus 1 to get 10x squared. The O in FOIL stands for outer terms. Remember, think of it as a dartboard. If you get confused, what's the outer and what's the inner? Think of it as a dartboard or as two circles. Your outer terms are 2x times negative 6. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. And then you have x to the first power. Your I stands for inner terms. Again, like a dartboard, negative 6 times 5x is negative 30x. And L stands for your last terms. Negative 6 times negative 6, a negative times a negative is a positive 36. Put your like terms together. You know your like terms in this case are negative 12x and negative 30x. Remember, like terms have the same variable raised to the exact same exponent. So negative 12 and negative 30 is negative 42x. Bring the rest down, plus 36 and 10x squared. And this is a simplified trinomial from foiling to binomials. 31 tells you to use the distributive property. The only thing different, it's almost just like FOIL. The only thing that's different is it just separates horizontally, but it's almost the same exact thing. 3h times the entire second binomial, 4h minus 6, minus 2 times that same binomial, 4h minus 6. All you do is distribute 3h times 4h. 3 times 4 is 12. H times h is h squared. And 3h times negative 6 is negative 18h. We're going to do the same thing with the negative 2. We're going to distribute it to the other one as well. Negative 2 times 4h is negative 8h. And negative 2 times negative 6, and negative times a negative is a positive 12. Again, now it looks just like FOIL at this point. You combine the like terms, the ones that are in the middle, negative 18h and negative 8h, and you get negative 26h, and bring the rest down, plus 12 and 12h squared. So again, here is a simplified trinomial that you get from using the distributive property on two binomials. 32 and number 3, you can 32 and 33, you're not allowed to use FOIL only because there's a trinomial in one of them. There's a trinomial and a binomial. So all you need to do is make sure you multiply everything in one by everything in the other. It's easier if you do it just like the horizontal method. In fact, it's called the horizontal method. So 3n times the trinomial 2n squared plus 3n plus 5, and do the same thing with negative 4. Negative 4 times the same trinomial 2n squared plus 3n plus 5. Now just distribute both of those. This is the horizontal method. 3n times 2n squared is 6n to the third because you add 1 and 2. 3n times 3n is 9n squared, again because you add 1 and 1. And then 3n times 5 is 15n. n. Do the same thing with the negative 4 times 2n squared is negative 8n squared. Negative 4 times 3n is negative 12n, and negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Put your like terms together. There are 2n squareds, 9n squared, and negative 8n squared. 9 minus 8 is 1n squared. And you have n to the first powers we can put together. 15 minus 12 is a positive 3n. There's only one n to the third power, so we'll put 6n to the third power. That n squared was positive, so between those two we'll put a plus, and there's only one negative value, or there's only one constant, in this case negative 20. So when you use the horizontal method to multiply these two, this is what you get. 6n to the third plus n squared plus 3n minus 20. For number 33, you're told to do the vertical method. In order to do the vertical method, you multiply these on top of each other by stacking them on top of each other. So all you need to do is take the first one, 2k plus 4, and multiply it times 2k squared minus 5k minus 4. So we'll multiply each of the terms by each of the terms. So if we take the first term, negative 4, and we multiply it times 4, we get negative 16. Negative 4 times 2k is negative 8k. We'll do the same thing with the next term. We'll multiply negative 5 times everything, or negative 5k. Negative 5k times 4 is negative 20k. Negative 5k times 2k is negative 10k squared. And we'll do the same thing with the last term, 2k squared. Again, for this one, we leave a little placeholder here. For this one, we're going to wind up leaving 2 placeholders. But 2k squared times 4k is going to be 8k squared, and it's positive, so we'll put a positive. And 2k squared times 2k is going to be 4k to the third power. This is the vertical method. We'll combine these three. Negative 16 doesn't combine with anything. It's the only constant term. Negative 8k and negative 20k is negative 28k. Negative 10k squared and positive 8k squared is going to be negative 2k squared. And then there's only 1k to the third. It doesn't combine with anything. 4k to the third. Here is your polynomial when you multiply those two polynomials together. 4k to the third minus 2k squared minus 28k minus 16.